This is a video series about the King of Crash, Babe Ruth. Ruth played his first 5 seasons with the Red Sox, and 1919 would be his final season with them, as they sold their young slugger to the Yankees for $100,000. Ruth was coming off another World Series championship. In fact, it was the Red Sox' third in 4 years, but this would not be the case in 1919. While the awards as we know them today weren't around during Ruth's era, so far I've determined that Ruth would have won Rookie of the Year in 1915, he would have captured the Cy Young Award in 1916, and he would have been the league MVP in 1918. Whereas in 1918, Ruth's responsibilities were split between pitching and playing outfield. In 1919, his pitching was decreased and his role as a hitter was greatly increased. In fact, in 1918, he only had 65% of the plate appearances of the league leader, but in 1919, that number jumped to 87%, and this was bad news for American League pitchers. As we consider candidates for the American League Most Valuable Player, there are 5 guys who jumped to the top of the list: Shoeless Joe Jackson, Bobby Veach, Babe Ruth, George Sisler, and Ty Cobb. Let's begin with who finished in 4th and 5th place in the MVP voting. It's so close that with a good argument you could sway me in either direction. In fact, it was so close between Sisler and Jackson that as I looked at the 35 statistical categories for hitters, I even added a top 3, just hoping someone might separate themselves. But it really didn't help. Jackson led the league in 2 categories. He finished in the top 3 in 15, and he finished in the top 10 in 30. But Sisler finished in the top 2 in 6, and in the top 5 in 25. I then compared their slash lines. Their batting average is virtually identical. I looked at the Triple Crown numbers. There's not a big separation there either. When I started looking at a bunch of miscellaneous categories, I noticed that Jackson had exactly 1 more hit than Sisler. They both had 31 doubles, and while Sisler takes WAR, Jackson takes offensive WAR. This is so close that I flip-flopped several times on who should finish 4th, but in the end, I settled on Sisler. He finished 2nd in the league in home runs, slug, runs, and stolen bases. In other words, he was a rare combination of power and speed. In fact, he finished 1st in the league in the power speed number. He also finished 3rd in the league in batting average, total bases, and extra base hits, and I just couldn't get away from these numbers. The battle for 2nd place came down to a couple teammates in Detroit, left fielder Bobby Veach and center fielder Ty Cobb. This decision would prove just as tough as the last one. In fact, they tied for the league lead in hits with 191, and while Cobb led the league in batting average, Veach finished 2nd. When we compare their slash line, Cobb gets the edge. But when we look at the Triple Crown numbers, Veach looks just slightly better. Veach has more doubles, more triples, more total bases, but Cobb has more runs, more stolen bases. Veach wins the battle with WAR, but Cobb has a better offensive WAR. This is really close, but I have to make a decision, and I'm going to go with Veach as the runner-up for MVP. Here's why. Veach led the league in 1 more category than Cobb. He had 1 more top 2 finish, and he had 1 more top 10 finish. He also had 97 RBIs, which were second only to Ruth, and in this shortened season where they only played 140 games, Veach played in 139. Cobb played 15 less games than Veach, and I think that matters. But being the runner-up always takes a back seat to the champion, and in 1919, the American League MVP was clearly Babe Ruth. He led the league in 23 of the 35 major categories. Nobody else even came close. Just consider this. Ruth led the league in WAR, offensive WAR, on-base percentage, slug, OPS, runs, total bases, home runs, RBIs, OPS plus, and a myriad of other things. He just dominated the league. In fact, Ruth led Major League Baseball in a lot of things, including WAR, home runs, RBIs, and slug. He certainly put the league on notice that his pitching days were numbered and that he was going to be a force to be reckoned with at the plate. To put Ruth's accomplishment into some kind of context, consider that he hit 29 home runs and his closest competition in all of Major League Baseball hit 12. So I have Ruth winning the MVP award, followed by Veach, Cobb, Sisler, and Jackson. You'll notice that back in 1989, Bill Dean had Shoeless Joe Jackson winning the MVP award, and that's probably because the White Sox won the pennant, but there's no way that I can put him that high. Ruth is clearly the most dominant player in the league. When we think of Ruth, we think of him as a Yankee, and rightly so. But we shouldn't forget that he played 5 full seasons with the Red Sox, and he did some serious damage. I determined that when Ruth pitched full-time, he would have won Rookie of the Year, and he also would have collected a Cy Young Award. As a two-way player, he would have won the MVP award twice, and of course his pitching records are well known. In 1916, he threw 9 shutouts. It's a record that stands today among American League left-handed pitchers, and it's only been equaled by Ron Guidry. He was also highly successful in World Series play. In 1916, he threw a 14-inning complete game, a record that still stands today. And of course, he once held the consecutive scoreless inning streak that stood for 43 years. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching, and if you have, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much.